For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to Strat News Global. As we head towards the end of 2023, there is a lot to ruminate upon and of course look forward in 2024. We've had various incidents across the globe and in India which can be called out of the box or even something that was not anticipated. And of course, there are challenges which are internal to India, but also have ramifications because of what India is now as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. How does it go forward? What has happened in the past 12 months and what are we looking forward to in 2024? And it is a little different from my normal episodes that I do. And joining me on this episode is my colleague and editor, Surya Gangadharan. Surya, thanks for joining in. And as we head towards the end, as I mentioned, looking back at 2023, what are your highlights? What do you remember, really?
I think it's a lot of it is about war, war and more war, The Ukraine war continues, then we have the Gaza war going on, and then we have the enormous economic disruptions caused by both. There's, of course, a human cost involved, which appears to have got blurred over in a sense. And there's also the fact that India is also on the cusp of something, perhaps something big, You had a G20 summit, and again you had the Artificial Intelligence Summit, two big events, several events.
Yes.
And we appear to be on a pedestal. Then you have that economic growth, which is, going forward, despite the despair in many parts of the world. So a lot of things there, a lot of mix, and some good, some bad, and we still don't know what 2024 is going to be about.
Which way it will go, we don't know. And the uncertainty is actually something that the world hasn't really witnessed after 2020. Because when COVID was at its peak, we had that disruption. We have come out of COVID, and then we had the Ukraine war and now the Israel-Gaza war. Looking at India first, what has happened with India and around India, the two things that stand out for me. One, of course, as you mentioned, G20. The other development I thought was the state visit of Prime Minister Modi to the United States in June, which was considered a big success because of the new initiative on critical and emerging technologies and many other stuff that happened in that visit. But post that, there has been a 2+2 between India and US, but there is this shadow of the so-called attempt on one of the US citizens, but a Khalistani activist in our eyes, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. How do you think this relationship is going to pan out, India-US, which Joe Biden, the President of the United States, has called as one of the most consequential relationships in 21st century?
I think we've had many of the top brass of the Biden administration underscore that this relationship is something they wish to continue with and they want to build on it. Which again leaves the question as to why it has this issue of the Khalistani, the so-called attempt on Pannun's life, has acquired such huge overtones. Does this suggest that elements of the Biden administration are not happy with the outreach to India, with the kind of strategic outcomes that are increasingly visible on the horizon? So that's a bit of a mystery, really. And I don't know if you know.
I've picked up something in the recent days, in the past couple of days, that while the US administration is talking to Indian interlocutors on this issue, they're not giving this kind of attention or centrality to the relationship. This is one of those wrinkles which can be overcome, is what I've heard from both sides. And they will move on, I think, with some deliverables India will talk about quietly, not in the public. So I think they will move on as far as this is concerned, because I think both sides need each other much more so, because that brings me to the other consequential relationship, United States and China. If you look at that, they had a summit meeting, Joe Biden and Xi Jinping, but there doesn't appear to be a major breakthrough in that. How do you see that impacting the world, really?
I think they've agreed to disagree and to try and bring some stability to the relationship. And I think what the Americans wanted most was a resumption of the military-to-military dialogue. I'm not sure if it's going forward, but I think Xi Jinping has said yes, or maybe a qualified yes. So we'll wait to see how that happens. But I don't think it's going to upset the trajectory of what China wants to achieve in the world, They want a multilateral world, but a unilateral Asia.
Right.
And in that sense, they will continue doing what they are doing. And we see it every day in the Philippines and other parts.
Sure.
There's a certain bloody-mindedness with which they are going in with their agenda.
That's true, and that is true of their approach to India. We are in the fourth winter now, fourth winter, yes, because 2020, 2021, 2022 has gone past in Ladakh, in the high Himalayas. Both sides may not be face-to-face or eyeball-to-eyeball, but they're there.
But where is it going, Nitin? I mean, we keep having these military-to-military dialogue. Where is it going?
What I have picked up, otherwise, is that the Chinese have hardened their shelters, they've hardened their infrastructure, hardened in the sense it's for long term. Earlier in Aksai Chin, it used to be short term, temporary.
So they're not going back.
They're not going back. What does that signify? Because all the protocols from 1993 onwards for border management have been torn up and have gone out of the window, as External Affairs Minister Jaishankar keeps saying, and all others keep saying it in private. If that be so, what is the Chinese game plan? I think that is the biggest mystery for India, and that is the biggest challenge going forward. So you spoke about economy as one of the challenges. I think in the run-up to the 2024 elections in India and post that, China will remain India's primary challenger and a primary challenge. So I don't know how it's going to pan out, because so long as these troops are there in an I would say abnormal situation, it's not going to be easy to build back trust which existed for some time, at least on border management, if not the other aspects of the relationship.
But it's curious, Nitin, the Chinese don't seem unduly perturbed over the fact that they've violated so many protocols signed over so many years. And they say, get back to...
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
They were saying that
there's some problem there.
I think so, and I think their internal problems also don't allow them to give enough attention to the border things, the border skirmishes, or not real skirmishes really, but border tension. If we see it as tension, they may not see that as a tension, because they're there, they have the ability, the capability,
they have the money.
But how long that money is going to be, and how the economy is going to perform, we don't know, because various reports, anecdotal and otherwise professional reports, say that their economy is in the doldrums right now. No jobs.
Forget, there's been a COVID outbreak somewhere.
Yes.
They're not talking much about it.
They're not talking about that either. And I mean, we have to be careful about COVID again in 2024. We've had some cases of the new variant, I think, that we have to be careful about. But looking at the subset of the China problem, Pakistan, how do you see Pakistan panning out?
Well, they have an election coming up in February. I'm not sure it's going to really solve anything. Their economic crisis continues. And as long as the military is in charge of things, I think they will continue to screw things up there for their own benefit. But for how long, we don't know. The real issue now is whether there's going to be some kind of a broader conflict with Afghanistan and where that is going. Because their army chief is now in the US looking for arms supplies and all that.
Sure.
What's your sense as to where this thing could be heading?
Pakistan, I think, again, they will use every opportunity of every crisis as an opportunity. And Middle East crisis right now, Israel, Hamas, that you mentioned at the beginning, is now starting to revive or get Islamic unity back on the front burner. Earlier, the Arabs were not interested. They were sort of giving up on Palestine. So Palestine issue has come right up front. The Hamas has achieved what it wanted to, the overreaction from Israel. And Pakistan will willy-nilly, as an Islamic nation which wants to aspire for leadership in the Islamic world, would play, its cards very skillfully to gain some maximum advantage in terms of economy, or reviving the economy or something of that kind, is what my sense is. And therefore, India cannot completely ignore Pakistan or what's happening in Pakistan. It can ignore Pakistan, but we have to keep a watch on Pakistan, what's happening, because that might have ripple effects in the Middle East, although our relationship with the Middle East or the West Asian countries has gone far ahead of what it was, and Pakistan doesn't seem to be a factor in that anymore. But moving on, I'm looking at what is going to be Indian military's difficulty going forward. Russia is involved in a war with Ukraine, which is debilitating. India's other military supplier, a major military supplier, Israel, is now completely engaged in the war.
Yeah.
What effect will it have on India's inventory? Indian military's inventory is something that worries me.
Do you think that we moved away from that legacy Russian equipment, or is still very much a part of the...
So it is there. We may have moved away from the over dependence on Russians. We have brought down the dependence on the Russians, but it hasn't gone completely. Many of our aircraft in the Air Force, the military equipment, the tanks, for instance, the main battle tank in the Indian Army, and many of our systems on the ships, in the warships, are Russian origin or the old Soviet Union origin. And it's going to take time. Even if they are 50%, not 70% as it was earlier, 50% is still huge. And our second best supplier or the second largest supplier has been Israel.
Yeah.
And that has got into a tangle now, and they themselves cannot fend for themselves for ammunition and other stuff. So that is going to be a problem. But I think, therefore, taking the policy of Atmanirbharta in the military or the self-reliance to the next level is going to be crucial.
You think it's working? Atmanirbhar is working?
In many cases, yes. Small projects, not the big platforms. And I think the government will have to now really push Indian companies for bigger platforms also by sort of showing the proof that they are serious about this policy by giving orders for artillery guns, for light tanks on Indian companies with collaboration with their foreign partners. Not vendors, but foreign partners.
Even the case of, say, jet engines.
Yes.
There's talk of 80% technology transfer and all that. You know?
Yes.
I mean, what does that mean, 80% technology?
So right now the Americans have agreed to doing the manufacturing TOT for the GE 414 engine. It's not the whole package.
Yeah.
But the French, through the Safran company, is willing to create a new IP, new intellectual property and a new product for the Indian Air Force Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft. And therefore, we'll have to see how that project goes, because the promises have been made.
Yeah.
Some discussions have taken place. Some movement forward is there. But 2024 will be crucial for that.
No, I've seen some reports about, I think, the Carl Gustav apparently going to be made here.
Yes, so many of
Igla also.
Yes, so many of those, see, like the Russians now have realized that they have to come to India with joint ventures and even for their supply of revenue stream products, that is spare parts and maintenance, all that they have to do in India, because India otherwise will move away.
Yeah.
So the Russians are willing to do that, and I think one of the crucial aspects of military modernization will be how India gets its story on manufacturing ammunition on its own, indigenously, right or wrong. If it doesn't, then we are in a soup like the Europeans are now, right now. They're not able to meet the demand of the Ukrainians, who are supposed to be firing. They want to fire 100,000 rounds of artillery every week. But all that they've been able to do is to do 100,000 rounds of artillery every month. So that's kind of deficit is there. So India has to be cognizant of this challenge.
So just stepping away from the military,
Right.
Sri Lanka, you know them well.
Yeah.
You know? And of course, Bangladesh.
Yes.
So the Sri Lankans, although we've helped them a lot, there still seems to be a reservoir of sentiment there, which is against us.
So that I've observed in every country in the neighborhood, be it Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives. We've
Absolutely.
in a way, it's gone out of our so-called grasp.
Yeah.
That has happened. Elections in Bangladesh are crucial, but Sheikh Hasina, who's India's friend, seems to be front runner and should win the elections from all indications. We don't know which way the election timetable in Sri Lanka will go, because President Ranil is a very freakish sort of outcome of what happened in Sri Lanka in 2022. One single MP of that party is now the president. And then if the parliamentary elections are held, he has no real traction with the people. So does he do the parliamentary elections first, or does the presidential election get re-elected and then do parliamentary elections?
Yeah.
Is going to be the dilemma for him going forward. India will have to keep a watch. See, everywhere, as you see the world now, and you said talked about disruptions, there is no secure backyard for any country.
Yeah.
You look at US, it does not have a secure backyard in North America or in that area.
Yeah.
Australians have no real rights or hold on the Pacific. I mean, the Pacific Island nations. In Southeast Asia, you cannot say that the US has any primacy.
Yeah.
And in India, South Asia is not in India's full grasp. So I think that's the reality of today's world. Therefore, multilateralism, which is what is being promoted by India.
There's a quick word on Bangladesh. Elections in January.
Yes.
We mentioned Sheikh Hasina. Hopefully she'll
Right.
win. Will that make Bangladesh any more stable? And what's the way forward?
So the short-term assessment I have heard from people who watch Bangladesh is that they will be in the run-up to the elections and immediate aftermath for a month or two, a wave of violence is likely because of the fractious nature of their polity. But eventually she'll stabilize because people want it that way, and that is what the sense is there. And we'll see how it goes because nobody is immortal.
Yeah.
So we'll see what is the alternative in Bangladesh.
A quick word from you, Nitin, on Bhutan. We keep hearing about some kind of accord between Bhutan and China on their disputed border. Exactly what is happening?
Well, they're talking, and there is a likelihood that they will move forward with a 3-step formula that they have decided of late. They've had the latest round of talks there. But the Bhutanese keep assuring India that India's security interest in that tri-junction area will always be taken care of. We have to settle the boundary is what their case is. And therefore, I think what was announced on 17th of December on their National Day as a special project on the border with India, 1,000 square kilometers of special zone where there will be investments, there will be more connectivity, and Bhutan would like to invite more investment into Bhutan. That is a precursor to even Bhutan changing tack from gross national happiness index to real manufacturing or services and sort of projects benefiting South Asia and Southeast Asia, as the king has put it. So I think everything is in a churn as it happens, and we really can't foresee what's going to happen in 2024. But on Strat News Global and our other 2 sister channels, we've had a very eventful year, I would say. Maybe the next year will be more eventful, and we'll travel more and we'll get more programs going forward. I think viewers know that we try and bring you stories and analysis on a different scale, in a different context, and not be part of the run-of-the-mill reporting, or even the routine reporting. I shouldn't say run-of-the-mill, but routine reporting. And therefore, do keep watching Strat News Global and our sister concern, Bharat Shakti, as well as Interstellar.news, because technology, AI, quantum, space, cyber is going to be, I think, the way forward. The world is changing very fast, and you will see India right at the forefront of technological churn that is going to happen across the world. And we'll try and bring you as much visibility and as much insight into all these sectors as we go forward in foreign policy, defense, technology, and the events around Indian subcontinent, or what people want to call it, South Asia. Have a great year ahead. Have a good New Year party. We are going to take a break for a week and come back refreshed and raring to go for 2024. Surya, thanks for joining me here. But as I said, we have decided, like every year since 2020, to take a break for the entire team for a week starting 25th of December. End of the year on 31st. We'll come back refreshed, as I said, with new programs, new content, and new approach to reporting in 2024. Till then, see you.